Bihari Jaya Vijana Vallabha Giridhari Yasoda Dandana Bhajana Rajana Jamunatira Vanachari Jamunatira Jaya Rana Madhava Jabihari Jaya Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Amachar Hardas Thakur ki jai, Prabhupada Bhakti Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda Sri Radha Gaur Bhakti Ki jai, Sri Radha Krishna, Prabhu Kabira Shama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan ki jai, Shri Vrindavan ki jai, Navadvipdam ki jai, Jivana Tulsi Bhakti Devi ki jai, Ananda Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai, Samaveta Bhakti Vrinda ki jai, Lord Premanandi, all glories to some of the bodies, all glories to some of the bodies, all glories to some of the bodies. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Guranga, all glories to Sri Guru. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Nityanamane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Prachadane Nirvashesha Srinjavadi Parashtacharya Shatarane Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasri Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Reading for Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, chapter 63, verse 27. Nana Bhavar Lila Yavopapannair Devan Sadhun Loka Setum Babashi Hamsi Unmargan Himsaya Vartamanan Janmaita te paraharaya gume. Nana, various, bhavai, with intentions, lilaya, as pastimes, eva, indeed, upapannai, assumed, devan, demigods, sadhun, saintly sages, loka, of the world, setun, codes of religion, vibarsi, you maintain, pangsi, you kill, unmargan, those who stray beyond the path, hingsaya, by violence, vartamana, living, janma, birth, etat, this, te, your, bara, burden, haraya, to relieve, bhume, of the earth. Translation: with various intentions you perform pastimes to maintain the demigods, the saintly persons, and the codes of religion for this world. By these pastimes you also kill those who stray from the right path and live by violence. Indeed, your present incarnation is meant to relieve the earth's burden. Purport: as Lord Krishna states in Bhagavad Gita, Samoham sarva bhuteshu name dveshostuna priya e bhajanti tu mam bhaktya mai te teshu chapyaham. I envy no one, nor am I partial to anyone. I am equal to all. But whoever renders service unto me in devotion is a friend, is in me, and I am also a friend to him. The demigods and sages, as Devan, Sadhun, are dedicated to executing the will of the Supreme Lord. The demigods act as cosmic administrators, and the sages, by their teachings and their good example, illumine the path of self-realization and holiness. But those who transgress the natural law, the law of God, and live by committing violence against others, are vanquished by the Supreme Lord in his various pastime incarnations. As the Lord states in Bhagavad Gita, ye yatamam prapajante tam stataiva bhajamyaham. He is impartial, but he responds appropriately to the actions of the living beings. Translation: with various intentions you perform pastimes to maintain the demigods, the saintly persons, and the codes of religion for this world. By these pastimes, you also kill those who stray from the right path and live by violence. Indeed, your present incarnation is meant to relieve the earth's burden. So in the previous verse, Shiva Chwara had indicated how the Lord is completely the opposite of everything in the material world, all the material elements, the bodies, the pranas, etc., time, karma. And if we take all that away, then we have the Supreme Lord. And then Shivachara said, I surrender unto you. So it's obviously not the impersonal form. Those who are impersonalists may argue that if we take away the ignorance of the material world, then the opposite of that is merely this impersonal Brahman with no form, no qualities, etc. But here we see in this verse that the form that is left is this form of the Lord who has pastimes even within the material world. So the material world is not illusory, nor is the form of the Supreme Lord.
sometimes people will argue that the form of the Lord is actually just Brahman and transformed into Sattva Gun. But we know from other statements of the scriptures that the Lord has qualities and form, but they're not material at all. So they're not Sattva Gun. They're beyond the material world. And consequently, we also have descriptions of the form of the Lord in Vaikuntha, but beyond the material world. So very clearly in the third canto of Bhagavatam, there are descriptions of how the Lord and his devotees have pastimes in the spiritual world, and they're completely beyond the modes of material nature and free from all suffering and old age and disease, etc. Moreover, we'll find even in the Upanishads, like Chandogya Upanishad, there it says in the liberated state, that Jiva has pastimes with the Supreme Lord. And he moves about, he has a particular body, and he eats, and he has laughs, and he walks around, and he plays, etc. So, therefore, the idea that we take away the material world and all we're left with is Brahman is actually not true, because the scriptures also speak of the form of the Lord in the material world, in the spiritual world. But then that form in the spiritual world also manifests within the material world, and it remains purely spiritual. It is not contaminated by anything in the material world. So one of the 6 qualities of Bhagavan, you have Jnana and then Aishvarya, etc. So one of them is Vairagya, which means literally detachment. So what this really means is the Lord, even if he appears in the material world, is unattached to anything. He is not contaminated like the jivas get contaminated by attachment to material things and by karma, etc. So Vairagya means he's completely untouched by anything in the material world, even if he appears in the material world. So, therefore we have the avatar of the Lord. He manifests within the material world, and the devotees can appreciate him, and he kills the demons. And the demons also can see him. So this is a remarkable feature of the avatar. Everyone can see the Lord. However, when the demons see the Lord, they do not see the Lord as the devotees see the Lord. They see him as a material being. So that is why in Bhagavad Gita it says those who are lowest of mankind, they will think of the Lord as an ordinary human being. Certainly they see him, but they think of him and perceive him in a very different way. Nevertheless, the Lord becomes visible to everyone. However, most important is that he becomes visible to the devotees in his spiritual form, even within the material world. And then the devotee is able to serve the Lord and experience bliss with the Lord. So that is the most important purpose of the Lord's appearance within the material world. So though in Bhagavad Gita it states that whenever there is a dharma, the demons become very strong, the Lord comes and he destroys the dharma and he kills the demons, and he establishes religious principles. Yes, that is one purpose of the Lord. And often, as we see here, talks about the relieving the burden of the earth. So one of those burdens is the amount of adharma. So the Lord will come and he will relieve the world of adharma. So that was particularly apparent when Krishna appeared. The Devatas were very disturbed by the activities of Kamsa and all his followers, who stopped sacrifices, etc., and ruled with demonic intentions. So because of that burden of the earth, they requested the Lord to appear. And so he came to relieve that type of burden, the burden of adharma, and all of the different kings practicing adharma. And consequently, he killed the kings and he restored dharma, etc. So though that is one of the purposes of the Lord, it is also explained that the main purpose of the Lord is to please his devotees. This is, of course, it's also related because sometimes the demons interfere with the devotees and they obstruct the devotees. So therefore, the Lord must kill the demon to help the devotee, as we see in the case of Vasudeva and Devaki being persecuted by Kamsa. So the Lord comes and saves them. Or Prahlad, harassed by his father, and therefore Nrsimhadev comes and kills Hiranyakasipu. So sometimes the killing of the demons is associated also with protecting the devotees. So that is one aspect of the Lord. By protecting them, he also pleases the devotee. But of course, for the devotee's part, he doesn't really request protection from the Lord, nor does he expect it. He simply wants somehow to meditate on the Lord and serve the Lord at all times. So the Lord rewards the devotee by engaging in pastimes with the devotees. Many of the forms of the Lord, of course, function in relation to very particular items, such as Varaha lifting the earth out of the Garbhodak ocean, or Nrsimhadev killing Hiranyakasipu, or Ramchandra killing Ravana. So often we find pastimes related to the killing of the demons, relieving the earth of burden, etc., and restoring Dharma. With Krishna, however, we have something quite different, because he has extensive pastimes that got nothing to do with killing demons at all. So we have a Ras Leela, etc., nothing to do with killing demons. So we have a huge variety of pastimes which have nothing to do with restoring Dharma, killing demons, etc., and even protecting devotees, but simply nourishing the devotees' love with all sorts of pastimes. So that, of course, happens with all forms of the Lord, but particularly with Krishna. Because of that, Krishna becomes very attractive. So he is called Krishna, or most attractive. And Narada Muni advised Vedavyas to glorify Krishna, to attract all the people in Kali Yuga. So therefore he wrote the Bhagavatam in such a way that the pastimes of the Lord became very, very prominent and very attractive to people. This, of course, and many of these pastimes involve not so much the powers of the Supreme Lord, but the sweetness of the Supreme Lord, particularly the Vrindavan pastimes. These become a prominent feature in the pastimes of Krishna. This is also natural because we know that Krishna has 4 special features. These features all have to do with sweetness, Madhurya Venu, Madhurya Leela, Madhurya Bhakta, etc. It's natural that when Krishna manifests pastimes, there will be a lot of sweetness as well. And it is that special feature which puts Krishna in the highest category of Swayam Bhagavan. And this becomes attractive to the people of the world. However, it is rare. One, of course, because Krishna only appears once in the day of Brahma, and secondly, difficult for people to understand because Krishna acts like an ordinary human being. When all the sweetness is manifest, the greatness seems to disappear, so then people don't think he's Supreme Lord anymore. So it may fool even Brahma or Indra, or someone else. So people have difficulty understanding, oh, this is Supreme Lord, and they'll think, oh, he's just an ordinary person. Therefore, though Krishna is the highest and the sweetest, it was so difficult to attain Krishna and understand him properly in the material world. So it is fortunate when Krishna appears in the material world and displays his pastimes that people get the opportunity, and then it is also fortunate that after Lord Krishna's appearance, we get Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's appearance too, enable people to understand about Krishna and appreciate his pastimes. So then it becomes not so rare. Of course, still rare because only once in a day of Brahma this happens. But nevertheless, it becomes available to all the people following after the appearance of Krishna and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. They get the opportunity to understand and appreciate the pastimes of Krishna and his sweetness. So these are also a form of relieving the burden of the earth. Not the same type of burden, of course. The other burden is adharma, and the Lord kills adharma, etc. So simultaneously, of course, Krishna does this. He displays sweetness, etc. Simultaneously, he kills the demons, even in Vrindavan, and in Dwarka and Mathura also, he kills demons and relieves the earth of that burden. But the other, of course, is to relieve the devotees of their burden of separation from the Lord. They long to see the Lord, and then the Lord satisfies them by appearing and performing pastimes with them. So in this way, the devotees get great satisfaction from the manifestation of the pastimes of the Lord in the material world. Now we may argue, of course, that anyway the Lord is in the spiritual world, and Nanda and Yasoda and all the people are there anyway, so what is the big problem for them? They already are fully satisfied. In one sense, yes, but there's also a satisfaction for these eternal associates in participating in the pastimes of the material world, because they're a little different. So in Vrindavan we have Krishna as a small child growing up, etc. That's not there in the spiritual world. So this gives a greater satisfaction to Yasoda, Nanda, and the elders, because they participate with Krishna when he's a small child and a baby, etc. And they can witness him growing up. So there's a special pleasure there that we won't get in the spiritual world when they see Krishna as he gradually grows. So in this way, there are some special features of Krishna when he appears in the material world, which also nourish even the Nityasiddha devotees of the Lord. And then, of course, we have the Sadhanasiddha devotees of the Lord. They are devotees in the world who are longing to see the Lord, and only when they get to prema can they see and participate in his pastimes. So when the Lord appears within the material world, then these devotees have the opportunity to join in the pastimes of the Lord. So of course we have the famous example of the sages of Dandakaranya. They wanted to appreciate the Lord in his and Madhurya Rasa. So therefore they became gopis after many years. Ramchandra was 16 billion years previously, or something like that. So he appeared in the 24th Yuga cycle of Vaivasata Manvantara, and Krishna's 28th, so it's 4 Yuga cycles later, and it's 4 million years each approximately. So 16 million years later, they get to participate in the Lord's pastimes. Like that. And as well as that, we have the personified Vedas. They became gopis also and participated in the Lord's pastime. So those are sadhanasiddhas who had great longing, and then they became satisfied when the Lord manifested his pastimes. So in this way, we get the burden of the devotee relieved by the appearance of the Supreme Lord. So in this way, the Lord continually manifests himself in the material world for the devotees. Now, of course, the Lord manifests in other forms as well, like Narasimha and Rama and Varaha and Vamana, etc. And he satisfies those devotees. Certain devotees are attracted to those particular forms, and the Lord appears and he satisfies those devotees by the particular rasas, etc., that they can see and experience with the Lord. But here we find that the Shivajvara is particularly indicating Krishna, because Krishna is standing before him and he's defeated the Shivajvara. So the Shivajvara appreciates Krishna. However, like many of the personalities outside of Vrindavan, Shivajwara also appreciates Krishna, but not so much with his sweetness aspect. That's the special quality of the people of Vrindavan. So he appreciates him for his greatness aspect. And therefore it's natural that he, as he described previously, how he is in charge of the creator of the material world with all of its material elements, and that he appears within the material world to relieve the earth of its burden, etc. So he is quite conscious of Krishna's position as the Supreme Lord, and therefore the sweetness aspect is, you can say, much less here. And this also goes for other persons like the Devatas. They appreciate the Lord because he is the creator and he's relieving the earth of burden, killing demons, etc. So that's quite commonly recognized by many people. But to glorify Krishna because of his sweet relationships with his devotees, that's a more intimate aspect of the Lord that fewer people will appreciate. But that's also the unique quality of Krishna, that he has this special sweetness that's not manifested in the other forms of the Lord.
You mentioned that the pure devotees can see the spiritual form of the Lord when the Lord performs his pastimes here. But when Maharaj mentioned about devotees, usually the sadhakas cannot see the spiritual form.
Yeah, when we're in sadhana we cannot see it because we are still contaminated. We can certainly appreciate it, and therefore in sadhana we have pictures of the form of the Lord, we have murtis of the Lord, etc. But we don't directly realize the Lord in the spiritual form. But we give proper respect, etc. And when we reach bhava and prema, then we have the spiritual eyes to see the Lord at that point. So we can see that spiritual form directly. So before that, it's not direct.
The Lord being the purest of the pure, the demons see the Lord, the devotees see the Lord. But still, like both of them got an impact. Even the demons, when they see the Lord, they get a good impact.
Yeah, of course. It's explained that when a person like Shishupal saw Krishna, he actually didn't see him directly, that spiritual form. But the form was so powerful and attractive that he could not help but concentrating on it, even though he saw it as a material thing. Still, he became attracted to it in spite of his coverings or whatever like that. So he didn't really perceive it until the very last moment when he was completely purified. Then he could see the spiritual form. And then the Sudarshan Chakra touched him, and then he got prema. But actually he could not see the form before then, the actual form of the Lord. But because Krishna's form particularly has this attractiveness, he was able to concentrate on that form and burn up his impurities. That did not take place when Ravana saw Rama. He did not concentrate on that form. Its attractive power was not so much, and therefore his impurities were not burned up when he was killed. The same with Hiranyakasipu. He didn't meditate on that form because of its attractive features.
When it said Sudarshan Chakra touched Shishupal and he got prema, what kind of form he gets in spiritual Shishupal?
Four-handed form in Vaikuntha. Yeah, of course he was originally from Vaikuntha.
Even though Krishna touched him, he gets regular form. Even though he was touched by Krishna.
Yeah, in that particular pastime. We have it with Jai and Vijay, then he got that form. You see that Putana, she got a female form as a nurse in the spiritual world, so different because she was not in that pastime, a different pastime.
You're explaining about this spiritual world that some custom doesn't happen and it happens in the material world, like Krishna growing from Vaishya, Bhagwan, and Oma, something. But you know that spiritual is like, whatever you want, you get it in the spiritual world. But this kind of is not spiritual. So, this kind of thing, when Krishna growing, the child is not available in the spiritual world. So can you say that in the spiritual world, even in the spiritual world, cannot get whatever we want? Yeah, because this kind of thing is not there in the spiritual world.
Oh, well, it's explained that though Krishna is always Kaishore age in the spiritual world, those who are in Vatsalya Rasa or Sakya Rasa, they see the Lord as if he were in another age, because within the Kaishore age, all the other ages are included. So therefore, Mother Yasoda still thinks of him as a small child, even in Kaishore age. So therefore, she can take him as a small child, as in Komara age, even if he's not.
But you still see this taking birth and this kind of things are not taking place.
Yeah.
Taking birth.
Yeah.
So this is basically the spiritual world. This is available in the material world.
Yeah. So these special features are there which satisfy those in different rasas.
So can you say also this kind of habit? Mother Yashoda, the mother who has a desire, so you should put the desire in the material world, in the spiritual world.
Yeah. Of course, we can also say that ultimately all the pastimes that appear in the material world are also eternal. So there's no real difference between the pastimes in the material world and in the spiritual world, apart from the fact that Krishna is born and he grows up, etc. But in one sense, these pastimes are also eternal. They're not inferior in any way because they appear in the material world. They also continue and continue and continue. So there's never any, it's simultaneously we can say, that they enjoy the pastimes in the spiritual world and in the material world. So therefore, they're always satisfied.
So we can say also that for them there's no difference between material pastimes
No.
and spiritual world.
No.
All the same for them.
Yeah.
And the verse it says that this second message, Devans or Locus Setul. Locus Setul normally that he is the priest for the people in the material world, like a priest. So he's, can you say that he act as a priest and those who like to cross the material world. Those who like to cross the material world.
Oh, well here, locus setun means, of course, bridge, and here it means religious laws, codes of religion.
Somebody in another is like a priest also.
Yeah, that's one. Other is restriction, another is rules and regulations, etc. So here it means rules and regulations. He maintains dharma for the people so that they can follow properly and then they can advance to bhakti.
The Lila assumed as a past tense, if I can like Devans or devotion. He assumed that form, different kind of forms.
Yeah, well, he maintains dharma and the devotees and the devatas through various pastimes of various sorts. So for the devatas, he'll kill the demons and restore dharma. For people in general, again, he acts as an ideal king, following the rules and regulations and having restored dharma and putting Yudhishthira on the throne, etc. And for the devotees, other devotees, that he performs his pastimes in Vrindavan and other places for increasing their rasa.
It seems that he's always trying to favor the demigods. We see the different kind of pastime. He always favors the demigods, not the demons. It's a little contradictory, but why is favoring demigods and not the demons?
Well, the devatas are devotees. And though the Lord is equal, he actually favors the devotees. So he will always give advantage to the devotees, and the devas are devotees. And so he will favor them. They are supporting dharma, and dharma is also the law of the Lord, and the demons are opposed to dharma. So therefore, he will always side with the devatas and dharma rather than the demons who destroy dharma. Because then the purpose of the world becomes lost. If there's no dharma, and then the human beings become very sinful and they simply go to hell. So this is against the purpose of the Lord in the material world.
Even if a demon appreciates the glory of the Lord, that is why the demon becomes fearless, and actually the demon becomes careless.
What's that?
If if a demon appreciates the Lord, just by honoring the Lord, one can become fearless. Even if he's a demon, he becomes fearless. That's the glory of God.
Well, then he's no longer a demon if he appreciates the Lord.
There's somewhere in the ocean, he just remembers the Lord and then he's not an enemy, but I think I guess wrong, but he was an enemy to the Lord. But just by appreciating the strength, then he became so much.
Well, if they appreciate something that's to their credit, it's always to their credit. It's like, say, just like Putana. She acted like a gopi, so that was a good credit, and therefore she got to the spiritual world because of that. So any little good quality may be very advantageous, even if all the other qualities are bad, and the Lord may, Krishna especially, may favor that particular person in spite of all the bad qualities.
But the Putana, take the example of Putana, the Putana's intention was different.
Yeah, but the good thing was she dressed up like a gopi, so then Krishna was sympathetic. She dressed up like a gopi, so anyway, that's a good plus point for her.
But it is said that when she was the sister of Bali Maharaj, she had the desire to feel Krishna.
That's what it said. The acharyas don't mention that anywhere. Our acharyas don't mention that. Maybe it's mentioned somewhere else, but our acharyas don't mention it. I don't know. Maybe Harivamsa, I don't know.
When you mention take the example of this Putana Maharaj, that should not be misconstrued, just being dressing like a devotee.
Yeah, it's an extraordinary case. It's not that Krishna does it all the time, but in that particular case, he can do it because he's Supreme Lord. So it shows his great mercy.